One of, if not the most sought after physiques, and this is, of course is not for everybody, but when it comes down to brass tacks, people like this aesthetic, attainable, realistic build that you see in Brad Pitt in the movie Fight Club. And ironically, this is probably one of the easiest physiques to actually obtain. What is great about this is you do not need a lot of equipment. If anything, that can kind of get in the way and overcomplicate things. But very simplistic stuff that I've been hitting home on the channel that a lot of you guys like. Resistance bands, adjustable dumbbells. I think I'd even kind of did this myself in this type of programming I'm gonna lay out for you, just using my Total Gym for 3+ years. But in this video, what I thought I'd do is give you guys a simplistic general blueprint with kind of a 5-step approach, laying out the exercises, the programming, training, and even the nutrition. Now, before I get into the exercises and other program variables, just laying out the equipment that I think you basically would need, regardless if you go to a commercial gym or home gym, you do not need a whole lot of really anything. I'll say up front, you could probably get this something close to this with just using body weight. The downside, the people I work with that are a little older, I'm getting 30s, 40s, 50s plus. Sometimes bodyweight exercises, 1, aren't as interesting. There's maybe some nagging injuries or just joint discomfort, or 3, just creativity and stuff around them makes body weight a little bit limiting. But when it comes to equipment, you could hit all this stuff with some resistance bands, adjustable dumbbells. I said again, if I didn't say it at the start, I think I kind of pretty much did this type of training when I was doing my Total Gym only training for 3+ years, just using these types of things. This would be a great solid tool that would be a standalone thing you guys could do as well. I don't think I mentioned it up front, but I will link all this equipment down below in the description box, along with some discount codes as far as what I would use if you want to help support me in the channel. What you definitely would not need for a physique like this is a lot of equipment or expensive equipment or a gym membership. You don't need barbells, plates, heavy weights, pin-loaded machines. You certainly could incorporate that, but again, it might kind of overcomplicate things more than necessary if you really want to. So for me and what I'm talking about here, I'm sticking to just basic stuff. Leaning into some of the exercises and really emphasizing not overcomplicating and adding a whole lot of fluff. The basic tried and true stuff along with some little specifics is all you'd really need. But getting into some chest or horizontal pushing stuff, basic push-ups, push-up variations, banded push-ups, dumbbell presses, you can do flat or incline. Incline kind of helps sharpen the shoulders. Got to do a little bit kind of 2 for 1, hitting the delts and the chest. So that's very popular nowadays, but I tend to kind of split those up. Resistance band push-ups. I love my barbell resistance band setups, even around a bench recently. Great exercise. It's going to work your chest. Also progressively if you want to add some extra weight and not do a whole lot of emphasis with external weight loads. Body weight stuff such as dips can be great if you got a setup for that. But again, if some people as they're older, it either aggravates their shoulders and or possibly they can't get a whole repetitions, but you could do things like assisted banded dips if that's an option for your preference. Into back exercises, starting off with pull-ups, great exercise, but I'm gonna talk about some more high repetition, low intensity stuff here in a second. So I think more assisted pull-ups make a little bit more sense if you have access to it. Again, if you got a gym or some sort of lat pull-up machine, you could do that as well. Trying to make it kind of basic though. I would say dumbbell rows are pretty much gonna be your best friend when it comes to back exercises and all you need to get that type of physique, no question. Of course, any kind of series of banded rows. Shoulders kind of really do make this physique. If you're doing a lot of presses for decent repetitions and sets, you're gonna kind of hit that as well. But if you want to get more direct deltoid work, you could do some vertical pressing, shoulder pressing, but totally not necessary. If you're already doing, say, incline presses or chest presses, you could do more lateral raises. I'm a big fan. I do think it's important and also helps supplement some of those back muscles, especially up top, bent over rear delt flies. Moving on to legs, you don't see a whole lot of it in the movie. When I talk to people, a lot of people don't want big quads, big hamstrings. They might want calf definition, but for something like this, I would say stick to something basic. We're talking about the stuff we have. Body weight squats, banded squats. You could do a variety of adjustable dumbbell stuff with squats, but pretty much high repetitions we'll be getting into. And then I would always supplement if you can. As always, we're talking your own risk here, doing things like some sort of a hinge pattern, deadlift with resistance bands, definitely with adjustable dumbbells feels good, and just really focusing in, dialing in that tension on the glutes and hamstrings. That's kind of give you more of that kind of an aesthetic shape that I think most people kind of want, at least in the lower body department. If you want your abdominals to pop and have a little more definition, you got to work them just like every other muscle. But I think to get more of that kind of six-pack definition, aside from the diet, which is going to be up there, is really kind of setting the foundation for this. doing some good key abdominal exercises. Some of my favorites and go-tos would be a basic ab roller. I sometimes use a resistance band with an ab roller. Sit-ups, you could do decline sit-ups with a bench or some sort of anchored position. Lower leg raises if you can pull it off with something. I'm using this Super Bench Pro, covered this in recent videos. I love this new attachment that I got right there. I love the lateral crunch. There's this somewhat of a myth, maybe it's kind of true, about it gives you kind of a boxier look in the obliques. So if you don't like to do lateral crunches, that's fine, you can skip those. But other than lateral crunches, I do think cable rotations, cable twists are always great, not just for the abdominals, but also the obliques to kind of work those. And then last, but certainly not least, if you have access to it, you could anchor either a band to the top and do resisted cable crunches. If you got access to a cable machine, that would also be an option as well. Comes to reps and set ranges, I would just kind of keep these as low as 12 or as high as maybe 25. Goes without saying that if you're doing a rep range like that, you're not going to be using heavy loads and or higher intensity. If you're using intensity in the realm of just absolute load. So it's not going to be the heaviest stimulus in your body. Could you make the case of doing lower frequency, lower reps, lower sets with heavier loads? Yes, but I find this type of workout, just in the momentum and what people are looking for, it's not so demanding, and I think it's easier and just more fun and interesting. Doing a high repetition circuit style, which we'll get into in a second. So keeping the rep range of like 12 to 25 reps, I think would be ideal. You could do something like just picking an intensity or resistance level that gets you to form failure within that range of 12 to 25. Form failure just meaning that you are stopping when you start feeling the tension kind of coming off the muscle, and either you're cheating, the repetition range is getting diminished, or you're starting to feel the stress kind of go on those auxiliary secondary muscles versus the primary muscles. I would just simply try a form that works for you at the level you're at, that provides the most amount of stress to that desired joint. When it comes to sets, I'm just throwing out some arbitrary numbers here. You can go lower, you can go higher if you want to, but taking everything in consideration that in the grand scheme of things, this is kind of a low intensity load to your body, you could probably handle a higher a higher set range of saying 2 to 4 sets. Take that as you will. Some days you can do more, some you can do less. I think you'll know it's too much, or it's time to kind of call it quits when that form failure starts to come on sooner rather than later with the repetition range. When it comes to cardiovascular activity, I know this is always kind of a touchy subject. I've always found, myself included, and I'm not even necessarily doing it that hard now, the leanest, kind of wiry looking people out there that I've always seen typically tend to do a lot of cardio. What is found apparently what Brad Pitt did is that he was doing more high intensity based cardio sessions. I don't think that's necessarily a bad approach, but I would say at the very least, keeping yourself active, doing something every day would be ideal. So those cardio sessions could be on the off day, or they could be at the end of the workout, being a little more high intensity, kind of a faster click, lower range than say the bike or treadmill. And then when it comes to the workout or split, apparently what Brad Pitt did in the movie Fight Club is he did a basic bro split. So he did, I think, a 4-day-a-week training split where Monday was chest, Tuesday was back, Wednesday was shoulders, and Thursday was arms. Nothing groundbreaking here. I think that could be an option if you really wanted to. This goes back to my original whole premise of this whole video, that this stuff is really not rocket science. It's really just consistency and kind of dialing these good key exercises in repeatedly. If it were me, I think a better way of doing it, you could have certainly just rotate these things. I would do either an upper or lower body split, doing that 2 times a week. Again, this is pretty low intensity, so I think you could do that. If you think it's too much, to take more time off. But so 2 upper days, 2 lower body days, just picking those exercises I listed off earlier and kind of putting them into a certain schedule. And I would actually do them more so in a kind of a circuit type fashion. So pairing, say, chest and back, that's 1 set, superset, go back and do it again. And just pairing things back to each other I think would be good. Or if you prefer total body, I think you can do that 3 times a week. And this also works out pretty good because this is not the most demanding thing. It's not like doing 3 days a week, saying with barbells or heavy weights or anything like that, or going to failure. Day 1 could be more some chest presses, bent over rows, deadlifts, sit-ups. Day 2 could be body weight squats, shoulder presses, and or lateral raises alongside some assisted push-ups, then alongside an ab wheel. Day 3, lunges, lateral raises, bicep curls, real delts, tricep press downs, throw another ab exercise. So just taking all different exercises and just kind of matching them together and just kind of rotating different things on certain days. When it comes to nutrition, this might be the real big base foundation and the biggest obstacle in discipline, or the hardest thing, part of this whole entire thing, is to get down and get this lean. I, again, don't think it's that hard. I think if people overcomplicate things, will take a little momentum to kind of get going. But if you look at what Brad Pitt did, according to this article, and I would not be surprised as I'm looking at this, it sounded like he was just doing a very kind of clean eating type of diet. And I also have heard that he was more or less kind of starving himself. You could say some intermittent fasting. of getting himself down to kind of this really lean aesthetic look, especially when it came down to the actual production time. But his diet was pretty much very basic stuff, very mixed, balanced diet apparently, with carbs, proteins, and fats. I do think tracking apps can be beneficial, especially early on, to get some momentum. Macro Factor, I think, is the best one. Shameless plug, Hybrid extends your free trial in case you want to take advantage of that, help support me in the channel. Now, Macro Factor actually does a unique kind of tailorized system to kind of where you're at. You don't have to be totally rigid and exact in what you logged. It'll take into account some other variables. But if you just want to be a straight shooter with it, I have found many times, especially over 200 pounds, for me personally, setting those base calories at 2,000 seems to work out good and create good solid momentum, gives you a nice kind of solid budget to work with. When it comes to the actual macronutrients, based on him doing kind of the clean eating, and this is what I kind of place money on, literally a sensible balanced diet to me makes the most sense for a physique like this with your calories in check, or just being a normal person eating your three meals a day with maybe a snack at nighttime with protein being some sort of an emphasis on that meal. I think it would be covering all the protein goals necessary for a physique like this. And then carbohydrates being somewhat more in the moderate to higher end. Not to get too long-winded, I will just leave it here. That is a basic foundational plan that I would guarantee most people, if you kind of stuck and did those things, getting a basic balanced diet approach that is within your caloric limit, using very simplistic tools consistently and effectively, and you repeat that over time. Main thing, again, keeping those calories a little bit lower, possibly likely for most people, in a deficit. Everything else will take care of itself. And then it comes into dialing certain areas up or down based on your personal preferences and aesthetics, and of course, genetics as well. Any questions, comments, feedback, let me know. Hopefully this video is informative, and I'll see you on the next one.